Okay, this meeting is going to have a couple speakers here. There's three of them. Our first member to share with Welcome to NA is Ryan R.
Good morning, guys. My name is Ryan, and I'm a grateful recovering addict.
Hey, Ryan.
Wow. It's funny, when Brother Phil had first asked me to come and speak, there was like a complete lack of humility. My first thing was ego and pride. I was like, yeah, he's asked me to speak at a conference. I must be working a good program if he has that snapshot that he has of my recovery. It's like, he must be doing good. He must be doing good. But it's funny because when I got alone with myself and my thoughts at night that evening, this fear took over me. And I was like, it's a men's recovery conference. My clean date, by the way, is 7/5 of 2016. So I thought to myself in that moment, I'm like, if it's a conference, 90% of the people there are probably going to have more clean time than me. Most of them have probably worked all 12 steps or have a practical application of all 12 steps, and I'm still in the middle of this process myself. I was like, what do I have to offer? What am I going to be able to share on that's going to be beneficial? But then I, was able to pray, and then having a conversation with Brother Phil, he had told me, your topic is Welcome to Narcotics Anonymous. And I was like, there's an IP. I was like, I can relate to all this stuff. I've been welcomed to Narcotics Anonymous a number of times. It didn't take hold probably the first 5 times that I was welcomed to Narcotics Anonymous, but I have a lot of practical experience with it. So I'm blessed that I can share on that. My journey started, and I won't get into too much of my past. I grew up with 2 parents. They taught me the difference between right and wrong. Many siblings. Addiction took off just after high school. It ended with intravenous drug use. Began with intravenous drug use around the age of 19, 20. And it was jails and institutions. The same old story. The stage just kept getting longer. But I was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous in the meetings of recovery through a third party. It was a halfway house. I was living in Boston, and they take you in one of those vans to a meeting. And my first meeting that I went into, I believe there was somebody at the door. I'm not even sure if it was this fellowship or the other one, but there was somebody at the door, and he either shook my hand or gave me a hug. And I thought that was, awkward at first. And then I went in, and everybody was smiling, and there seemed to be a lot of happy people there. And what I did was I immediately judged everybody else based on how I was feeling. I sat down, and I think at my first meeting, I don't remember which fellowship, but all the people were older than me. So I immediately separated myself. I said, I don't belong here. What do I have that relates to them? How can they relate to what I'm going through? These guys are all 10, 12, 20 years older than me. Not to say that they didn't have knowledge or that they didn't have life-saving information. I just wasn't willing to hear it because I separated myself. I said, I don't belong at this meeting. And then I went to another meeting, and it was a young person's meeting. And at this meeting, it was a different experience. I felt like, I do kind of belong here. I relate. I can get down with this. But my sick disease thinking was not at a place at that time where I was willing to start working an honest program. So needless to say, my motives were awry. They were skewed. I went to meetings because of that social acceptability. I didn't know who I was going to those rooms. Through substance abuse, the bottom line was I was just a lost soul, and it was the first place where I felt where I belonged, so it was a start. It got me started to hearing somewhat of a message of recovery. Whether I was willing to internalize it, whether my desire to stop using was there, somewhat of a seed was planted, because when I came to the rooms, I started seeing people that were able to live life, or at least they said, that they had multiple years clean. I don't know whether I believed them at the time, but they were saying and they were talking in a manner that if it were true, it was desirable. It was something that deep down I would have wanted, but I was at an age where I thought I knew what was best for me. So it was my own selfish self-will that said, I'll take this suggestion, but I won't take that one. I'll talk about this step with you, but we're not going to have a discussion about principles, and there will be no practical application in my life. So it was very broken up, the times where I started gaining more insight. Because I think for me, this has been a program of awareness, and I get that growth when I put the action in. Awareness has been created every time I continue to work a step, every time I practice a principle in my life, when there comes a choice and I'm able to recognize what I learned in this program. But it just was not there when I first came around, man. I could tell you, I knew nothing about traditions and steps. I'm a great book learner. So I was one of those addicts when I first came to the rooms that, like, after 6 months of being brought to meetings every day, I could tell you all 12 of the steps without even looking at the thing. You know what I mean? I'd hear people starting conversations. I'd be like, oh yeah, step 4. You know, and I'd like share on stuff that I have no really practical application, no experience with. It was just all ego. I wanted to fit in. I wanted you to like me, and I wanted you to think that I knew what I was talking about. And by doing that, it hindered my growth, my personal growth. It made me friends in the rooms, and I stuck and stayed, but it only lasted so long because there was never complete surrender. There was never, I give up. There's no chemical solution to the problem that I have. It's spiritual in nature. There was no recognition of that. So I continued in and out of the rooms, further incarcerations, and then I'll tell you, this time coming to Narcotics Anonymous, I got beat down. And I had seen, one of the blessings of being welcome to Narcotics Anonymous is that I knew that there was a place where there were people that could live life on life's terms without putting chemicals in them. And that was enough so that when I got out of prison for the last time, or out of jail for the last time, I knew where to go to get started. You know, that's a blessing, because if it wasn't for rooms like this, I would literally be lost out in the world with no knowledge of how to live life on life's terms. So how could I not be truly grateful that there's a program that if I choose to, I can practice these principles, get a sponsor, work steps, get some awareness that'll help me get through life without putting something in me that's ultimately going to lead to my death. It's truly a blessing. So I can tell you this time, prison helped with that. You know, they say in recovery and relapse that sometimes a relapse is the jarring experience that brings about a more rigorous application. Well, whenever you go before the judge, you have like 90 days clean, and you think you're doing the right thing. You're like, I got a sponsor. I'm the GSR at my home group. I go to area service. I'm on the activity subcommittee. And the judge says, well, you were just doing that stuff because you knew you were going to prison. And he hits the gavel, and I'm like, okay, well, here I am, you know. So that was the jarring application, because it's not like I haven't been to prison, I haven't been to jail before, but sitting there this time, I was just like, it's official. You cannot use successfully. And I knew it before I had picked up that last time, but the difference this time is I had started working a program prior to that court date. I remember I knew that harder narcotics would make my life unmanageable, but I was unwilling to fully surrender to the fact that alcohol was a drug, like it said in our reading. But obviously this prison sentence told me that it was, you know, because it was solely alcohol related. And I remember when I picked up my white key tag in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, a guy had said to me when he gave me a hug in the hug line, he looked at me right in the eyes and he said, "You never have to use again." And he shares about it when he gives his lead. And if I think about it, after that meeting, I had asked him to be my sponsor. Because it's funny, too, in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, I'll take a little skip back. I would pick a sponsor in the past based on somebody that I thought was like cool or had it going on in their life. They had a nice car, they had the cute girlfriend. Those are the things that I wanted. It wasn't somebody that I could tell like had a solid sense of a higher power working in their life, and that they looked like they had peace and serenity about them. That just wasn't where my head at. But this time, like, I saw it. You know, this guy had something. He had a peace about him. He had a serenity about him. And when I hear him share, it's about this program and how these steps work in his life. So I asked him to sponsor me, and we started on this journey. And I'll tell you what, man, getting incarcerated and having that guy and other people from recovery on my side was such a blessing. He would send me IPs like this, and there would be just questions in some of them, and we'd answer them, and we'd have discussions on the phone about what was going on. He would have me break down, like, the words of each step and define what each one of them means in the dictionary and what each one of those words means to me personally. And it gave me a deeper understanding of what the step meant for myself. So it was the first time in my life that I'd ever been able to be incarcerated and actually not put chemicals in me and be okay with it. Because my disease would tell me it's okay, it doesn't count, you're incarcerated. And it started me on my journey there because I was able to become a certified peer supporter, assistance, and aid, and talking to other criminal addicts and addict criminals that were also incarcerated. And that wasn't always a fun thing because you get looked at as like that dude that's not conforming to the jailhouse mentality, that dude that will snitch on you, that dude that will do this. And it just at times was very, very difficult, full of fear. But through conversations with my sponsor, I knew that I was doing the right thing. So when I got out, there was a more rigorous application of this program. And what I try to do today, and what I feel like a lot of my strengths come, is in communication and working with other people. Like, somebody welcomed me to my first Narcotics Anonymous meeting, so I try to make it a point in my life that if I'm at my home group or another meeting and I see somebody standing there who's shy, who's awkward, who's just kind of like, first time in a meeting, to go up to them and ask them questions, ask them where they're from, give them a hug, give them my phone number, and then text them and reach out to them, and let them know, like, we do care, because it's funny, when I'm in Narcotics Anonymous, I can do the things that I'm supposed to do. The practical application in my personal life can be very difficult because it talks about the self-centeredness that's at our core. And I can act out on my defects and self-centeredness 29 of the 30 days of that month. But Narcotics Anonymous gives me that 1 hour of every day that I choose to go to a meeting where I have that awareness and it's fresh in my mind that now is not the time for me to engage in behaviors or activities that go against the spiritual principles of this program. Because in Narcotics Anonymous, I spent years promoting disunity. Before I'd learned things like about traditions. And tradition one, I had, I would gossip about people. I would sit there and go to meetings, and like a gentleman was sharing at the gratitude meeting, like take a hostage, like find a female. Like those were the things that I were looking for. As a sick individual, I put the drugs down and I would go to meetings, and it was like that was where my mind was at. It wasn't how can I live life on life's terms. It's how can I find somebody else to validate me? How can I find somebody else that I feel okay with me? And it never led me anywhere good, man. Typically, we would end up using together within 3 or 4 months. But this time around, I try to the best of my ability to share and care the NA way, like Brother Phil says, when I'm in Narcotics Anonymous. When I'm at home, NA has afforded me the opportunity to go back to school. I'm in school full-time at Pitt Greensburg, which would never be a possibility if it wasn't for an application to this program. It just wasn't in the cards. I'm employable. I rent a house with another individual that's in recovery. And when I had got out of prison, I was a 31-year-old convicted felon living at my parents' house. That's where my mindset was at, like, full of fear. Like, success is not on the horizon. Those aren't possibilities right now. And through working this program, I've realized a day at a time that if I keep putting baby steps in the right direction, that I'll be able to achieve some of the dreams that I have and some of the goals that I have. Maybe some of them can come to fruition. It truly is a blessing. And I had one thing to say, but I can't remember what it was, so I'm going to end there. I'm grateful that you guys allowed me to come and speak today. And God bless.